Alright guys, Alwaysmutetheweirdo here, and I'm going to do a little video on what you're seeing on screen. This is just the Steam page for WWE 2K26. I just want to talk about WWE 2K26, right? This is like, as a fan of WWE since the late 90s, I'm also a fan of like wrestling games in general since God knows when. I'm just scrolling down to show you there's three editions there. £140 is the top tier edition, and I just want to weigh in on this. So basically, I've just been watching No Holds Lex and Kenny Bomb. Shout out to them for doing a great video on it, explaining what they think the community should do and what they think the developer / publisher should do, what they think needs to happen. They touched upon there's some kind of season pass, I believe, coming. I haven't looked into it too much because, in all honesty, it's straight out of the gate. I'm going to tell you, the price is putting me off big time. A bit of background, I'm a gamer. I'm not a one game kind of gamer. I play a lot of indie games. I do stream on occasion, but I wouldn't say it's nowhere near a career for me. It's just something I like to do on occasion, usually on a Sunday, and then maybe sporadically when I can be bothered the rest of the time. But I'm not a one game gamer. I play a lot of indie titles. I do usually get the latest WWE game. I did buy the AEW game, but I didn't really play it that much because it didn't really suit me. I think I've just been spoiled with WWE games that just so much easier for me, and it made a lot more sense. AEW did go back to the old school wrestling games, so it was nice for a little bit just to try it out, but I don't really get on well with those sorts of games. I feel like it takes a lot more time to master a game that's got that sort of mechanic, the old school wrestling mechanics in it. So they're talking about some season pass. As you can see, there's 3 editions: the standard edition, there's Attitude Era edition, and Monday Night War edition. I believe there is one more edition that's not there, that's in between standard and Attitude Era edition. Again, I'm not against having different editions. It's the sheer phenomenal increase in price, and I think anybody judging that price needs to look from their own perspective, but this is mine. I work full time, so it's not that. I could probably afford, even with a full-time job this is, I couldn't really justify £140 on one game, because most of the games I play, I pay £20, maybe up to about £40, but the games that I buy, a lot of them are really cheap and really enjoyable games. They don't come out with tons of bugs like WWE games usually do. They usually come out and they're solid. You don't notice the bugs if there is any, unless you're really, grinding into like the high level content, and you maybe might notice a few bits. For me, wrestling games are priced based on the obsession by the consumer. They're a yearly game. They're like COD. They're like NFL games or football games. That's the developer / publisher makes that decision to make them a yearly game, and you literally, people just lap it up. It's like the latest roster release, they've made a lot of good changes to the match types and stuff, and GM mode seems to be improved. I watched another video about that earlier. My problem with this model that they've got is, why do we need 4 editions of the same game? And my only thought is, they're losing money on sales because they're not improving the games enough. So they're putting content that you will clamour for. The first one that comes to mind is the pre-order bonus is Joe Hendry. That guy has astronomically become such a superstar, and he's so fucking loved across the WWE universe. It's, to me, that is pure predatory behaviour to put a superstar like Joe Hendry in as the pre-order bonus. I'm not saying they can do it any other way. They're not going to put someone in who's rubbish, who nobody cares about. But I just don't like that behaviour, and I think consumers should be protected from that, because as a person, I really, really like Joe Hendry. I would want Joe Hendry in my game, but I wouldn't want to have to pre-order a game, which realistically, in my head, I want the top version because I want all the content. I don't want to miss out on anything. The fear of missing out is real, and to me, again, that's another thing that should be protected against. I don't understand how a developer or publisher can be allowed legally to just siphon off content that's in the game into different editions, lock people out of content. By all means, have it that you have to unlock it within the game. But to me, games used to have all the content on the game. You used to have to grind for it. That's fine. I don't mind a little bit of a grind. But the problem with 2K and their grind is they expect you to spend all your life on that game, or just suffer not having said content. They don't care about you, because they're basically saying, we know that you really want this content. We know that you really need this content. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, oh, don't matter. You can grind for it if you want, but if you don't want to grind for it, give us some money. No, that shouldn't be allowed. That should be illegal. It should be done. If people want to pay for it, like in a special edition, that's fine. But at the same time, no, 150 quid or 140 quid even is too expensive for one video game. I don't care how much DLC you have. It's still too much. It doesn't make any difference, especially a game like WWE. WWE is a yearly game. If it was not a yearly game, 140 quid, 120 quid might not be too bad, but it's a yearly game. And this yearly game doesn't get supported infinitely until you want to stop playing it. It gets supported until they cut you off because they've brought out a new... That's the kind of shit you expect from someone like Apple with an iPhone. Oh, well, yeah, you've been using that iPhone for a few years now, so we're going to make it incompatible with the latest update, so you have to buy a new phone. This is just, it's just like anti-consumer through and through, and somebody out there in consumer law or in sort of the gaming industry, surrounded by the laws, especially, this is a game that a lot of kids will play. 140 quid is not something you should be expecting the bank of mum and dad to fork out for a game. And you should not be expecting a kid to save up 140 quid to get this game. Now, granted, a lot of the kids that play this game will probably only play this game and maybe one or two others max in a year. They probably will stick to one game because if they've got good parents, the parents restrict how much money they can spend on games, yada, yada, yada. But speaking of this money and the bank of mum and dad and stuff like that, this is kind of in reference to the video that I watched with No Holds Lex and Kenny Bomb. Like, everything they said, they have valid points, but in the comments, somebody mentioned about, like, grinding or something, and they were saying that they were criticising this person had made a comment which I thought was pretty valid. And I'm not saying you can't have different opinions, but to me it seems pretty obvious that you doing a video on this already said in the video that you stream this content, and if you didn't like it, you just wouldn't stream it. You have the time to grind. You have the time to do whatever you need to do with this game. You are maybe doing videos for it on a daily or a weekly basis. You're probably not spending a lot of your free time doing anything else. You're probably spending a lot of your free time gaming. I might be wrong. Feel free if you end up coming across this video. But to me, you can't compare what somebody who produces content for 2K26 is going to spend on that time on that game time wise to what somebody who's an average consumer is going to spend on that game. I have a full-time job. That means at best I've got a few hours a night. I am also not a gamer who spends all my time on one game, so that again cuts that time down. Maybe I spend like an hour on it every night. Over the course of a week, maybe I spend 1 or 2 hours. With the amount of content in this game, and the fact that my faction is probably my favourite game mode, apart from the grind, like, I would essentially not have time to do all the content that would obviously be available to me in the time frame that it is available for, because all they're bothered about is hooking you in to play that game all the time. They don't really care about whether you've got a life or a job, or whether that's your job. You're supposed to care about that. You're supposed to restrict that game's pull on you, because you're the one who's got responsibilities and stuff. When you're a person who's creating content for WWE 2K26, I feel like you should have a responsibility to highlight that and be like, right, I have this amount of time. I spend a lot of time on this game. I don't mind the grind. That's fine. But that's not realistic expectation for a consumer. That's a realistic expectation for you, because you don't. And this is not me saying they don't have a life, but for a no-lifer, in terms of I spend most of my fucking free time on this game, to me, that's what I would class as a no-lifer. I'm not saying you don't have a life when I say that. I'm just saying you spend all your free time on one game, therefore that is your life. That is your life outside of whatever responsibilities you have to do. Like, to me, you can't use that person as a model for whether you can make people grind, or whether people will accept that. But the problem is, because this game is directed at kids and teenagers and stuff, primarily, a lot of these people do have a lot more disposable time to play this game. So they don't really care about those of us that don't have. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe they've thought about it, and maybe their thought about it is, well, if you don't have disposable time, you must have disposable income. So therefore we're going to take all that disposable income so you can get the same benefit as the people who have the disposable time. But the problem is, the disposable income they expect you to have is so far fucking from what you actually have. I mean, when you look at how long it takes you to grind in the game, and you work out how many matches you have to do based on an average match score in my faction or whatever, it takes you like multiple hundreds of matches to get a single pack, right? Which means that they're purposefully skew-whiffing it so that it could go to, oh, well, actually, I don't have time to do that many matches. I don't have time to grind. How much is it to just buy it? And for someone who, shall we say, is a little bit younger, doesn't have that sensibility to go, this could be a problem. They just go, oh, well, you know what? Oh, I'll just spend a tenner. And then if they play that game constantly, that could amount to like doing that up to 7 or more times a week. And that's just, to me, that shouldn't be legal to have that as an option. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want the gaming industry to be so heavily policed that it sucks the fun out of it. But when developers aren't being responsible with their microtransactions, season passes, and DLC models, someone needs to step in and go, hang on a minute, dickhead, this is not fair. You're basically predatorily preying on the young who haven't maybe got the life skills to bloody deal with this sort of thing. People who are prone to addiction as well will get heavily hit by stuff like this. And like also people who are just obsessives. So like I have a condition that basically means that I might obsess over things. Wrestling is probably one of my obsessions. Like I might have a little bit more life experience and knowledge about gaming and stuff and not doing stupid shit like spending money on packs and stuff. I might be a little bit more sensible than the average person in my situation, but like to me it's these things are obvious that this is a problem, and I don't understand why as a gamer I have to be forced to. Yes, I can choose not to buy that game, but if all your mates are playing that game or you're seeing videos online about this game, you want to buy the game, you want to play the game. And when they put a model on there that's like £140 for the latest edition with all the content, the special edition with all the content, you're like, oh, I can't justify that. And then, now, this is just a thought that I've had since seeing the price. How many people are going to look at that price and go, that's too high? And then they're going to go to a black market site or they're going to go to a torrent site and they're just going to download it free with all the content, or they're going to get it at half that price. Because I'm not going to lie, in the past that's what I've felt like doing. Is like, oh well, there's no point in me buying that at that price because that's just unrealistic. They've not thought about that price at all. They don't give a shit about me, so why the fuck should I give a shit about the money going in their pocket? You're alienating your consumer, and it works both ways. Yes, it will hurt us because we might give up on the game and not buy the game, and we're missing out on the game, but you're also going to miss out on the money. And that's where the problem lies. All you're trying to do is make money. And that's fine. That's what you should be doing. You should be trying to make money. But if you stop thinking about the consumer and how much the consumer matters to that money, then all you're going to do is create a rod for your own back, and boom, you're not going to have the money to make the next game. Personally, I don't see why we need a wrestling game every year. I think we could have a wrestling game, then an update, and then a wrestling game, then an update, a roster update. I think that would work. But I don't think WWE would be okay with that, because I think they like using WWE games to hype up their pay-per-views and vice versa. But all of this, to me, just stems back to TKO might have nothing to do with this, but the prices are going up for the tickets. They're running major events in Saudi Arabia to try and bring in more money. It's backfired on them because people didn't go, and I don't blame Americans for getting pissed with it. Even though for me, Saudi Arabia having the show is good because the show is on at a more reasonable hour for me then. But Americans obviously don't think about how it impacts the rest of the world, just like, WWE didn't. Or in this case maybe did and thought they'd give Europe and like Saudi Arabia and stuff a bit of a bonus there. But it just reeks of TKO to me, and maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but this is the problem with WWE right now, is like everything's going up in price unnecessarily and is pricing the working man, the normal person, out of going to a wrestling show, out of going and buying the latest WWE game. And they're not gonna give a shit. They're not gonna change it. They're just gonna sit here and go, oh well, actually that's not so right. So to me, and also in the gaming industry, I believe that everybody's going to blame Nintendo, because Nintendo came out with a slightly higher price for their games when they released the Switch 2 and stuff. It's like, but the problem is, you need to realise other consoles are ahead of the Switch. They're ahead of the Switch. They're the ones that should be setting that. Switch is doing that because they're trying to claw back money because they're not as successful. yes, Nintendo is a massive company and they get a lot of money from Nintendo fanboys, but in reality, a lot of gamers will gravitate towards a PC or a console that is, like, shall we say, a little bit better in terms of power. But everybody in the development gaming industry is using excuses like Nintendo, blame Nintendo, or what have you. And while I don't wholly disagree with that, I do think to some extent Nintendo is partly to blame. Nintendo has a different scenario, a different model. This is why when you go into a CEX trading shop, Nintendo games are probably still high priced because they don't depreciate as much as PlayStation or Xbox games. But yeah, back to wrestling. Honestly, like, I think, did they say like the adding like they're adding like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 season passes. Now, if these are a $5 or a $10, it might not be too bad. But if these are anything above a $10, it's just greed. And especially considering, and also, this is another thing that came into my head when I was watching the guy's video. Fortnite is the kind of game that has season passes. You know what Fortnite is? Not 140 quid to buy. So I'm sorry, but you need to get your head into the real world of gaming and stop trying to go, oh, well, we want to be, if you want to be a free-to-play game with season passes and shit, then don't charge for your actual game. That's what you need to do. That's my main thing. Developers need to realise, if you are not making a free-to-play game, do not use season passes unless they are free. If they're free, fine. Use a season pass. You have asked people to pay for your game. Therefore, you do not have the right to turn around and go, oh, we're going to do a season pass as well, and you're going to have to pay for that. You pick one model or the other. If you want to make money from season passes and all the junk that comes with free-to-play games, then you make a free-to-play game. You choose which one, where you want to go. If you want to pay for a game, you want people to pay like a 60 plus pounds for your game, you cannot be putting free-to-play bullshit in there. Maybe you put some cosmetics in there to earn yourself a little bit of extra money. I think cosmetics has always been seen as acceptable for microtransactions. But a season pass is a thing that is meant to be for a free-to-play game so that they can earn more money from their game because they're not earning anything from the sale of their game, and it's understandable. If you are, but the problem with that is consumers, again, we just buy it, we just do whatever, and we just buy it, and we buy into the bullshit. Me personally, I avoid season passes. There's a lot of mobile games that I play that have a season pass. Again, it's a free-to-play game, understand it, but I will only they usually have 2-tier season passes, where half of it's free and half of it's paid, and I just go for the free half because I can't be arsed paying money for a free-to-play game. But I can understand and accept that they're going to put stuff in that costs money, because how are they supposed to develop more content for that game if they're not getting paid? So I do allow it in my head that, yeah, okay, that's going to be there, and I just put up with it. But in a game I've already paid fucking £100 for, I am not accepting free-to-play bullshit. That is just not on. But yeah, apparently GM mode's going to be loads better, and, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the game. At the moment, my verdict is not buying it at all, because in my opinion they've just got greedy. I think basically having the standard edition at £50-60, if I go back, standard edition at £60, that's okay, I'd pay that, but I wouldn't pay that for with all the content missing. Then 120 is I think that's the 3rd edition. Don't have access to the 2nd one on Steam at this point. Let me have a look at compare editions. There you go, King of Kings edition. So like, Monday Night War is the max. That's 140. So 60. Let me work this out actually. Calculator. 140 minus 60. Oh, what do you know? It's £80. Now, the reason I've done that calculation, guys, is because my rule with wrestling games, especially, but other DLC models, including like Borderlands, is if I pay £60 to £80 for the base game, and then when I calculate all the price of the DLC that I am getting, in addition, if that means I am paying more for the DLC than I am paying for the base game, then you are wrong and you need to sort your shit out, because DLC is additional content, additional to the base game. So if it's more money to get the additional content than the base game, then you are ripping me off, because the base game is not fucking including the majority of the content. The majority of the content is in the DLC. And it might not be true, but if you're asking me to pay more than I've paid for the base game, then you must think there is more content in that, so you're charging more money. So therefore, we are at an impasse, because that is not on. And I think that should be the way that they assign a threshold to DLC. Like, and by all means, like, this is like advanced access, and there's lots of means to justify that increase in price. But to me, 120 is a reasonable amount for what you're getting in the top tier one. 120 would be semi-reasonable for me. I still might not go for it, because I just think they're just being greedy and they need to learn the lesson, so I'm voting with my wallet. But 120 is, I have always said 120 is my max that I would pay for a special edition, and they've gone above it, and now I'm like, I do really like what they've done with it. I do like how they've marketed it. I don't think it's fair. I don't like it. I'm not going to do it, but I do like the Attitude Era and Monday Night War monikers to it. That's really sweet touch, but I just think they've lost the plot, personally. So that's what I'm going to go with. £80 is far too much. And even like if you were to come down to the £120 edition, you're not getting all of the season pass. You're missing 2. So you'd have to pay 2 extra. So if they're a tenner each, you're still paying £140. So my guess is they're actually 15 to 25 quid for the season passes, which means you are saving more money if you get these editions, but they are charging a stupid price for a season pass. I just don't agree with it. But yeah, let me know in the comments, guys, what your thoughts are. If you're going to be picking up the new WWE game, what are your thoughts on consumer rights on this one? Or basically, is there anybody out there who works in that field who wants to bloody take a stab at these guys? Because I would love to know that someone is fighting our corner in that field and going, hang on a minute, right, this is pretty predatory. You've got pre-order bonus for is Joe Hendry. You've got freaking 3 editions with extra content rather than just having one. You're charging more for the DLC than you are for the actual game, so therefore leads me to believe the full game is not. You've siphoned off the full game into separate things. It's just not right. Personally, just like for me, let us know in the comments. If you're buying the game, what edition are you buying? No judgment from me, really. I think if you've got the money and the time to justify it, that's perfectly fine. But I don't, and I don't see how it's fair that they do this to me, because I am a huge WWE fan and a huge wrestling game fan, particularly the WWE ones, and I would like to be able to play the game. It just irritates the fuck out of me when all they're bothered about is making more and more and more and more money, and literally I'm still waiting for 5-on-5 Survivor Series matches. And I'm sorry, but that seems like the most logical, basic thing to enter into a game ever. It's just, they just keep stopping at 4, and it's really irritating. Again, if you know that it's in this game, do let me know. I'm not saying it'll sway me to buy the game, but Who knows? Honestly, though, I think the best thing that 2K can do is to just pass the torch on to someone who is not going to try and rob us all blind. I don't really care if the graphics drop in quality. I'm more about the gameplay, and I'm more about not being robbed. So I will see you in the next video, guys. Tatty bye.